just one before Christmas. So, first of all, I think we have some apologies for our
Yeah,
absence.
apologies received from Councillor Kramer. As you know, he has some family dramas going on at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest? You've seen the agenda. Not for me. Okay. Should point out at this point that we are reshuffling the agenda slightly so that item 6 on the agenda will be delayed to come into the same discussion as item 14, and that will include, of course, budgetary consideration of staff salaries. So immediately before that, we will be asking members of the public to leave. Thank you.
So, point of order, Mr. Chairman. Why are we doing that?
Because it's really impossible to have budget setting discussion without involving salaries.
So, you were suggesting that you bring that item forward,
No.
and then we can have the open session again for the budget discussion, presumably.
No, we'll take those two together.
So, you wish to close the door on the discussion regarding the budget, which is the biggest piece of work that this council does. I
But
would
we have
suggest.
to include salaries as part of that discussion.
So, you can have your discussion about salaries, and following that, you can have open session to discuss the budget. Sure.
We don't agree with salaries discussion here, so that's a full
Well,
council meeting, so.
yeah.
So the,
The budgets will be discussed at full council and approved at full council.
Yes. We are charged with setting the budget that will be presented to full council.
I'm afraid, Mr. Chairman, I'm afraid this seems utterly perverse, because the main item on the agenda, as far as I can see here, is our discussion about the budget, and we've already had a number of meetings about this offline, and this is an opportunity to air those views in the public meeting, and you're now saying you wish to move that item into a confidential meeting, and therefore it's not open to people to understand what decisions we're making. Why ever was the item put on the agenda in this case if you felt it should be held behind closed doors?
Don't answer that question.
Well, I think, when did you have your last working group, finance working group meeting? Was that after the agenda had gone out? I think
yes,
at the moment we still don't quite know when the agenda went out, it still wasn't known quite which bit of the budget would be discussed. But following on from that meeting last week, the working group meeting last week, I think a significant amount of the discussion is still about salaries. So I think that would be the reason for bringing it down the agenda into a confidential session.
So when you say you're bringing it down the agenda, Mr. Chairman, you're saying it's still going to occur tonight?
Yes.
Fine. In which case it should still be an open session, because the confidential portion we can have before that, and any recording can be stopped, and any members of the public that are present can be asked to leave, and then we can have an open session to discuss the budget. That's what I would propose.
But we cannot divorce the setting the recommended budget without discussing salaries.
Well, why ever
Part and
have two
parcel.
items on the agenda? You say we're still going to have a discussion about it,
Yes.
but you say, on the other hand, so to me, the only difference is you're going to exclude any opportunity for members of the public to take part or hear what's being discussed regarding the budget, which of course is a pivotal thing because it affects the precept, it affects what you are going to request in terms of payment from the residents of Storrington.
Yes.
And you're now saying you're going to do that behind closed doors at a meeting where, as I understand it, it was designed such that we would make a recommendation on what budget and precept we were going to set, to then move forward to the next full council meeting where the decision will be taken. I don't understand the logic of what you're attempting to
I
do here.
don't think the decision will be taken by full council at the next meeting on the 7th of January. I think you still will not have made that decision until we have the extraordinary. Do you remember we discussed it after
Yes,
the
I'm
finance?
aware that there's a provision
So I
put in.
don't, we still don't seem to be at a point where the budget is going to be agreed tonight.
It may well not be, but I don't see what a problem is with the discussion being heard in open public meeting. The confidential section, fair enough, regarding salaries and staff and so on, the implications of that, I do understand. That can be held in confidential confidential session. But you are now putting the main discussion of the night into a confidential session. I do not think that is correct.
Have you arranged your tool in such a way that the salaries are not included in the review of that?
The budget shows
all of our material related to this includes all of the elements of the budget, and it's difficult to flip around an Excel spreadsheet without revealing a number of aspects of it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the draft budget that we have been working on for a number of weeks now has one item in for staff cost, which is the wage. This is the salary cost of all the staff. One item. It doesn't break that down into individuals. There's just a headline figure for overall cost. So the matter doesn't arise really that that's impacting an individual within that if the discussion regarding salaries is only affecting one individual.
It affects all the employees of this council. So I think it is right and proper that information be retained in confidential manner.
So we will still have a discussion, and we will have a discussion about budget, but we will not allow members of the public to take part in that, or to hear that,
Because
to
that-
see that.
If you look at the amounts, staffing costs, and of course there are two lines in there, come to a significant proportion of the precept. We cannot discuss the precept as a whole and ignore those items.
Mr. Chairman, I think you could hold item 14 further up the agenda in private, and then move on, depending on the results of that.
Anyone else got any input?
I think we can only go with guidance from you, Rebecca.
Well, I'm seeing just in confidential session is the, sorry, that's not making sense. In the confidential session, obviously there is a salary, a job re-evaluation and a salary review, so that will need to be taken in confidential session, and that then will lead into discussion of the precept that includes that element. I'm just thinking, can you discuss you've separated the tabs out on the budget, Peter did really helpfully. Can you discuss the other tabs in public and perhaps not discuss the tab that includes salaries, save that until the confidential session? How about that? Would that be a solution?
Yeah, and I think ultimately we'll end up with a position where we're saying there are too many things we still don't know yet.
Yeah.
What we need from full council is guidance on how we prioritise these. You know, we can come up with a scheme that says which are more important than the others, which we tried to do. But it's full council that'll have to decide on our priorities and our budget.
I
It's
still
not
do
the
think
list.
you're way off, to be honest. I
Yeah.
still think there's a lot of discussions, and I think this will go right up to the wire,
Agreed.
not be agreed until your finance meeting of the 28th, I think it was January, followed by the extraordinary. I still
And I
think
think
we've
that
got
would be-
a lot of discussions to
We have a lot to
thrash
do.
out.
I think
Yeah.
at the end of this meeting we need to be able to advise full council how we're going to prioritise those
Yeah.
projects. Because we still have a list of things we want to do and not enough money.
Yeah.
So we have to decide on how we're
Right.
going to get that list into some
Okay.
order.
Yeah.
Whether that's phrased from, because we have three sources of income, don't we? We have precept, we have seal money, and we have our assets, what money we can make from our assets.
Yeah.
So, at the moment, we have minimal input from football and cricket. We have no funding from the leisure centre because of the historic lease arrangements. We have done a review recently of the rents we can get from here. So seal money, we know that's coming, but we have more things we want to do. Oh, say we need to go out and check again. So that's another process to make sure, do we want to spend the big numbers on the things that we think are sensible? I think the best we can hope for here is some idea to make sure that we think operationally we've covered the numbers. We think we're as close as we can be to take to full council. We can look at our projects and make sure that we think they've been assessed to the best we can, make sure we're not missing projects. But it's down to full council to decide how we take this forward. And I think that would be the opportunity for residents to be at that meeting and say, we don't agree, or we do agree, or we see why you're doing that. This is not the meeting tonight.
Yeah, I still do think it's a work in progress, but how would that be a helpful compromise if you discuss, because it's been the spreadsheet's been separated out onto other tabs, would you like to discuss the other tabs other than the general admin that includes salaries?
Yeah.
How about that?
I would disagree with that entirely, I'm afraid, Mr. Chairman. I think since the salary budget is the largest portion of the overall budget, I think it's important we discuss the whole budget. If we start taking chunks out of it, we're not getting a representative view of the budget as a whole. And in fact, I would also make the point that I think that the discussion overall on the budget, which of course is for this committee to recommend to full council, only recommend, and for full council to then take a view as to whether that's what we want to do and what the implications of that would be regarding the precept, which is not looking very pleasant at the moment on our discussions we've had so far. But I think that making the decisions regarding the budget overall and all elements of it is then would be the right thing to go first, in fact, because then you would have, right, that's the budget that's available, and within that there's an amount available for staff costs, and therefore you can look at how we're going to apportion that on that basis. So I think the agenda should be followed as written, as published. But that is my view. I am but one person.
I think what Rebecca said is a good compromise.
Yeah, I think salaries can't be discussed in public.
No, you can't, can you?
I
Want to have
really
a vote on how we proceed?
Okay.
Does that make sense, or?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if we can formulate a vote on how we proceed.
A vote to
So Peter is proposing,
look at the tabs on the spreadsheet, excluding the one on general administration costs. So we can look at the individual committee recommendations one by one.
Let's
So-
do-
Peter is proposing that. Is anyone going to second that?
So it's best to do that in advance of discussing the salary.
Yes.
Conference.
Yes.
And only to go that far in item 6.
Mr. Chairman, on the, if I may, on the budget that you circulated, I think earlier on today, the item that you're now saying shouldn't be in discussion involves expenditure of £438,813 for the current proposal for 2026, out of a total budget of expenditure of £578,000. So it is the lion's share if you exclude the general admin portion of the budget. So any discussion about budget which doesn't include the item which represents about 75 to 80% of the budget, is hardly worth doing, I would put.
Still is only a draft budget though, Councillor Sadler, isn't it? So those figures are still very much in draft, very much a working document. Okay. So Peter has proposed to move the general expenditure tab, which includes the salaries, down to the confidential session.
Point of order, by the report, please.
Okay, that's fine. Let me just, yeah. Lovely, okay. Does anybody second Peter's proposal to move that tab down to confidential session?
Yeah, I'll pass it.
Okay.
You can't, I don't think, have a discussion about salaries now.
No, okay. Right, we can take a vote, so who is for? Okay, all okay, accept, and who is against? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Right,
Can we move on to the minutes of the previous meeting? So yeah, I think these have been circulated to you. Does anyone have any, spotted any errors in the minutes? A sieve. No?
No.
I think people would let me know if they've heard anything about it, if anything came back, so Peter, did you want to propose?
I propose that these minutes be accepted.
Okay, and anybody seconding?
Yeah, I'll say.
Good.
Are we all agreed that those minutes are all in order?
I think
Thank you very
that's good.
much. So, next one here, there we go. Next.
Somewhere.
Sorry.
Yes, I know.
Hold on. I'll get you to issue those pages after this. Thank you very much. Fab, thank you.
Who's not it dated?
That's all right, done.